It's not often that you get to drive a car that drives people wild. A car that has not just fans, but fanatics. But the giveaway is this little badge here. Yes, this under here is the new Model 3 Performance, and we've come all the way to marvelous Malibu in sunny California to drive it. Unfortunately, the people here are a little bit crazy, and we've been told that if they see this, they'll all lose their minds. So Tesla seriously asked us to put this sheet on it every time we stopped. We're also not allowed to let people near the car, don't let them sit in it, don't let them take photographs. But I'm going to let you see it. So here it is, and it looks at least a bit different. Now, there were rumours it was going to be called Ludicrous or Pizza Pie or Spaceballs or something like that, but they've just gone with Model 3 Performance again, which is a bit disappointing. I was hoping for something sillier than that. Mind you, it does have an insane mode, so there's still a touch of that there. Now, there have been other Model 3 Performances before, but they were always a bit compromised for various reasons, some of those reasons called Elon Musk. And the engineers told me today that this is the performance version they always wanted to make. People wanted it to be special, people wanted it to look different and feel different, and they say they've achieved that with this one. So what is actually new? Obviously they couldn't change the metal. It doesn't look vastly different from the Model 3 released late last year, but there is this new front fascia here, which is very sporty. These are genuine air vents providing airflow down there. This design at the front is all about stopping front end lift. Then you've got new wheels, which are kind of sexy, and they've got these air caps in them. Now the air caps are all about reducing the airflow to improve the range, but apparently you can take them off if you're going to the track and you don't care about range, or if you just don't like the look of them, or you want to be a bit different. Now inside here is one of my favourite features, which is this cool ludicrous symbol on here, which for Spaceballs fans is, I think, the symbol of ludicrous mode when you jump to a speed that's even faster than hyperspeed. And yes, this car really is that fast. And then around here you've got this very sexy bit of carbon fibre. It's very sports car, very Porsche, very HSV, I guess. And that from behind is how you'll know that person's bought the expensive one. There's also a new rear splitter down here, again for fantastic aero. And then it looks like late at night Elon Musk came out and stuck this very silly, tiny bumper sticker on, again with his favourite Spaceballs ludicrous thing. Crazy. So before we set off, of course, there are many settings to play with. In dynamics here we can go from chill acceleration to standard acceleration to insane, which is what it starts up in, because it's just that kind of car. Ride and handling you can choose, steering mode you can go for sport, and then in track mode, it tells you you can't use this on the road because it's so crazy. There's all kinds of things. You can actually set the understeer, oversteer, or neutral handling balance. You can turn off the stability control, of course, and you can change the level of regenerative braking, which is unusual in a Tesla. There's also a race preset and of course a drift preset, and here you can see all kinds of information. It's very BMW M3 Audi RS racy tech. Other than a bit of slick carbon fibre trim on the dash and the new seats, which are noticeably more sporty, the interior of this performance variant is very much the familiar Model 3 you've probably caught as an Uber a dozen times by now. If you own one, of course, you'll describe it as magnificent, spacious, modern, techno-savvy, cool and clever, with a uniquely Spartan aesthetic that brings to mind IKEA furniture and wind-swept Scandinavian birch forests. If you don't own a Tesla, and are perhaps more cynical, you might describe it as feeling far cheaper inside than what they're asking you to pay for one. And you might point out that having to use a giant touchscreen to operate the damn thing, and I mean everything, even putting it into gear for example, is a bit stupid and possibly even dangerous. It took weeks to get an answer out of Tesla on what the Model 3 Performance will cost in Australia. And to be honest, while I was waiting, I was expecting an answer north of $100,000. So to hear that it will go on sale from $80,900 plus on roads was a pleasant surprise, a shock even. That's very, very reasonable for this much car, and makes Hyundai's Ioniq 5N at $111,000 look expensive. Not to mention a base Porsche Taycan at $164,000. Tesla may well change that price several times over the next year, of course, because that's what it tends to do, but it's a hell of a starting point. If you want more details on the specifications and pricing, make sure you read my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au. Having met many of Tesla's senior engineers and designers at the launch of this car, I would describe them as serious driving enthusiasts, and I would seriously suspect that they all have Porsches and BMWs hidden in their garages behind their collection of Teslas. Their goal with this Model 3 Performance was to make a proper driver's car rather than just a one-trick pony that's crazily fast in a straight line. But they went and made it crazy fast in a straight line anyway. The new Performance has an entirely new power unit at the rear with new tech bar windings in its motor for more efficiency and even more torque. This thing zaps its way to 100 kilometers an hour in 3 seconds flat, but it's the always-on, mad acceleration in the mid-range that really sets it apart. Tesla claims the Model 3 Performance offers 380 kilowatts of power and 740 newton-meters of torque, which is a lot, but it really does feel like even more when you drive it. Despite being heavier and gruntier, Tesla claims the new Performance Model 3 manages to be more efficient than the one it replaces, albeit delivering just a 2% reduction in energy consumption. Claimed energy usage is 16.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Tesla claims a total range of 528 kilometers on the WLTP, which is obviously going to drop if you drive it the way its makers intended. Using a Tesla supercharger, you can add 228 kilometers in 15 minutes, and that's all Tesla will tell us. There are no official figures available for how long a full charge takes on either a Tesla charger or a home wall box of your own. So what is the Model 3 Performance like to drive? Well, it's a big step ahead, I think, from the previous one, which, by Tesla's own admission, was compromised in some ways. It wasn't as good as they thought it could be. They said this vehicle is all about unleashing the potential that's always been in the platform. They've always wanted it to be more impressive. Buyers have always wanted it to be more impressive. Faster, better handling, more interesting. One of the things they talk about is not wanting to be just a linear performance car, which means not a one-trick pony, not just good in a straight line. And the simplest way they explain how they've changed that is by going from a more front-wheel drive biased approach to a very much rear-wheel drive biased one, with up to 80-85% of the torque going to the rear wheels, driven by that clever new motor at the back there. So what you get is a car that's still very sharp on turn-in, but a bit more playful and adventurous on the way out, a bit more of a driver's car. Now the other big step forward is the active suspension, which has appeared before on Model X and Model S, but never in a Model 3. And obviously some car companies charge a lot of extra money for active suspension, but Tesla's included in this car because they think it's important. What active suspension provides is the ability to switch between soft, easy cruising for the day-to-day drive and that kind of magnetic, stuck-to-the-road feeling that you want when you're on a track or on one of these fantastic canyon roads in Malibu. Now, Tesla described this car as a canyon carver, which is obviously a very local thing. The canyon roads here climb up from the Pacific Coast Highway and wind through the mountains, and they are absolutely spectacular. One incredible corner after another. And the Tesla does handle it well. Personally, I find the steering a bit digital. I think there's just something about Tesla that makes me think it's going to be digital as much as it is for real, but it just doesn't have as much of weight in it as I'd like. Not as much weight as a BMW or a Porsche. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's pointy, turn-in is excellent, and the real party trick, of course, is this. Oh my goodness me, that's the insane mode, and you can do it over and over again until your face hurts. But honestly, I've found today that it is so brutal, so hard on your body that it can actually make you feel quite ill. This thing will do 0 to 100 in 2.9 seconds. That means it's faster than a Lamborghini Huracan, faster than a $500,000 supercar, but you get seats in the back. Speaking of seats, one of the big changes to this car are these new sport seats. Tesla admitted, and customers complained, that the old ones didn't hold you enough and there's a lot of sliding around back and forth. But Tesla put its own work into these seats. It didn't just buy Recaros off the shelf, it created its own performance sport seats with the cool little logo as discussed. And they're pretty good, they're pretty grippy, they're comfortable, they're not overly bolstered, but they hold you nicely. Now, one of the other things about the acceleration is that even though Tesla has given this car more powerful, more upgraded brakes, the thing is that the car can approach the next bend at such ferocious speed that it catches you out, and all of a sudden you find yourself thinking, oh, I wish I had more brakes. There's probably nothing wrong with the brakes, it's just that driving something this fast with so much instantaneous torque, you really need to recalibrate. Now, the old Model 3 Performance is no slug. It was incredibly fast. I remember it well, but this is another level again. Fortunately, it's got better handling, it's got better ride, it's got better driver involvement, it's a better car overall. But frankly, the speed part of it is almost too much. Oh! Sorry, that's a really unpleasant noise. Now, Tesla claims that it doesn't want to be all about linear performance. It doesn't want to be a one-trick pony. It's not all about straight line speed. I guess the way to drive it is to resist the urge to touch the throttle too hard, or even put your foot near it. And then, if you're careful, once you get used to it, you really can find a nice balance of acceleration and winding through the curves. It really can feel like a proper sports car. For me, of course, there's still something a bit weird about a properly fast electric car. It's just the silence, I think. The other thing you notice is how quiet it is. Road noise is down by 11%, wind noise by 28%. Somehow they've managed to create their own special version of the Pirelli P0 tyre that has more grip and yet is somehow better on range and all the stuff that an electric car tyre needs to be. Tesla worked very hard on that. Now personally, I still find the steering wheel a bit cheap feeling, a bit plasticky for such a sporty car. I don't like the fact that they've taken the indicator stalks away and put the little buttons on the steering wheel, but I'm sure you get used to it after a year or so. I don't like the fact you have to change the gear selection with the screen, that's fiddly. I don't like the fact that the speedo is here and not in front of you where it belongs, and that you can't have a head-up display. But complaining about Teslas is an easy thing to do, and no one listens to you. It's also incredible to drive here in California because there are so many Teslas. I think there might be more Teslas in this country now than Trump voters, which would be a problem if he does crack down on EVs as he's promised to. But almost every second and third car you see here is a Tesla, and of course that creates a certain excitement when a new one comes along.
Tesla provided no information about safety for the performance model, but it is assumed it will be unchanged from a standard Model 3 long range. Aside from autopilot, that means you get auto emergency braking, lane keep aids, and instead of blind spot monitoring, you get the surround radar view and blind spot cameras when you indicate. The latest Model 3 has an additional centre airbag, giving it a total of 7, as well as additional bolstering where the doors meet the body in response to requirements in its American home market. It should be able to carry its maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating, which the original version achieved in 2019. Tesla isn't saying whether anything will be different about the performance model when it comes to ownership, so you can expect standard Model 3 fare. That means a 4-year or 80,000 kilometre warranty plus roadside assistance. The battery and drive unit are warranted for 8 years or 192,000 kilometres, whichever comes first. Tesla says it monitors its customers' cars to know whether they need servicing on a case-by-case basis, but every 12 months or 20,000 kilometres is recommended for a checkup.
So there you have it, the new Tesla Model 3 Performance. I can't decide whether it's insanely impressive or impressively insane. Either way, check out the full review at carsguide.com.au.